have any. I don't have any cool intro like you. So, hey everybody. Nice. You guys both. It's both so bright. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining. I want to thank Space Window and Jedi Arms Dealer for joining me tonight. So we're going to talk some Battle Mode and some Proffieboard OS5. But I asked these gentlemen to join me because of their knowledge in the Saber community. So thanks so much for coming on, guys.
Oh, thanks for having us.
Thanks, Fett. This is going to be awesome.
Yeah.
Sweet. So yeah, so I mean, I had emailed you guys Battle Mode, and I know you guys have played with it, but I wanted to kind of get some impressions, get some thoughts, and then kind of chat stuff up with you.
Well, the first thing I want to say about Battle Mode is, what's the method of turning the Saber off once you've done that to turn the Saber on, which is like a quick flick, like they do in the movie? Is there a way to turn it off?
There's it depends. So what I did between the first version and the version that you guys have now is there's actually a lot of defines. So there's a define for twist off, which you can enable.
Space has.
Oh,
yeah,
is that
so
what
if you
okay.
twist?
Maybe I forgot.
Yeah,
I think Jedi Arms Dealer told me earlier. And I
yeah, so
motorcycle throttle.
Right.
Yep, exactly. So that's the one gesture that works when you're. So the biggest issue, it's very easy to use gestures to turn your blade on, but if you use those gestures to turn your blade off, you can't move the blade anywhere while you're using it because it's going to turn off. So for turning off, the twist off is really the one that exists right now, and the power button. A lot of the other ones just didn't make sense, or if they got implemented somehow, you'd be using your Saber, and if you did the wrong movement, it would turn itself off. So it kind of, when the Saber's on, you get really limited with turning it off versus the other way around. When it's off, it doesn't matter what you do with it, you could turn it on. So.
Well, I noticed you talked about in your videos, you've got multiple defines that we can put in the config. Where can we find that list of defines? I had a difficult time.
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah.
I thought I had sent you the link. I have a thread on TRA just for Battle Mode, and it's there's a long list there. There's also just for anybody else watching too, in the Proffieboard OS, if you go into the prop folder, the Saber Fett263 buttons, that file, there's a lot of information in there and some of it's code, but at the very top, it actually lists everything out.
Is it a text file?
Yeah, it's just a text file. Yep, you can open it.
Computer.
So yeah, what I did was, we did the first beta, and we had a couple users use it, and I started getting input from everybody that all this stuff they wanted to be able to do, and I was like, well, I can't make everybody happy with one file, so the defines, which Frederick helped me with, let me put ways for you to kind of customize it. So you can turn certain features on and off just by putting stuff in your config. And essentially, what I did was I threw everything on the prop file that I thought would be good or that somebody had asked, but you don't have to use it. Like if you just take the prop file and use it, it doesn't have any gestures. But if you want to do swing on, you put the define for swing on in. If you want twist on, if you want stab on, if you want thrust on, if you want the twist off. So you just put those defines in, and that just turns certain features on for you. So there is a long list of them because some of them work certain ways with other pieces. So that's part of the reason I probably have to do a couple more videos for everybody, because in adding so much customization, I've actually made it better for everybody, but also probably made it a little more complicated. So.
Yeah, well, complicated is not always a bad thing because we got a billion options at our fingertips now. It's pretty cool.
And that's the idea, yeah. So let me say hi to everybody in the chat. Yeah. Oh, sorry. So let's see. We got Scott, Kim, Cam, Mike, Mountain Sabers, Ronin Sabers. Thanks everybody for joining. I'm sure everybody's familiar with Space Window and Jedi Arms Dealer, and I do have their channels in the description of this video, so definitely check out their pages as well. But go ahead, Jedi Arms Dealer.
No, I wanted to ask the question that probably 100 people have already asked, and that is because I have a project that Space knows something about that requires a Saber with no buttons, and I really want to know if blaster effects are down the pipeline. I'm sure you've been asked that.
Yeah,
with no buttons.
No buttons is something I've had a couple questions about. In theory, no buttons. I mean, with all the gestures that are there, finding a combination to, like, obviously you got your ignitions, and you could technically use battle mode 100% of the time to handle your lockup and your melt and your stab. The effects like lightning block and blaster right now, the use of the buttons, I'm sure there's a way to do it. It would probably end up being custom, but we could probably chat about it a bit.
How about let's talk about the gestures, because I do have a question about that. And do you guys think potentially there's something in the gestures that could act as an aux button? For instance, like you do this gesture and this gesture. I just don't know how you'd hold the aux button, because in your video, Jedi Arms Dealer sent me one of your videos that's really good for displaying these battle mode features, called beta testing for Proffieboard OS5. Fett263 prop file battle mode gesture ignitions power saving.
It's like the
16
minute
minutes long. No, it's awesome, because it really shows all the stuff that battle mode can do in these, you know, as you go through the different modes or the different effects. And then when you get to the blaster effects, and you do have to depress the button, and then you get into the blaster mode where every swing is turned into a blaster deflect. I wonder if there's a certain gesture that wouldn't be performed in a natural playing with the Saber, but something like the twist motorcycle thing, you know, almost like.
I mean, you could
twice, or
you could probably, I mean, in reality, because of the it probably couldn't be twist, because twist is the one that you'd set aside to turn your Saber off.
I got a good idea for this. How about in your video, the same video, you had done two maneuvers. One of them was cutting through the door, and then the other one was like kind of like you hit it on the floor, and the tip was like you could do tip drag on the floor. Tip drag. Now, what if you did tip drag and then wrote an A, or wrote a certain thing on the floor? With the subtle gesture recognition of the Proffieboard, you could maybe input it that way.
That would be amazing. I don't think I have that skill set.
Just start activating buttons.
Well, that actually maybe leads me to what I was going to ask you, which is, as far as the gestures go, who is now? Are you selecting from like somebody, some awesome programmer somewhere in the world, programmed in the gestures, for instance, the one that you do force push, and you're utilizing their control set, or did you specifically had to write all that yourself?
So force push. So again, this is all Frederick's code in ProffiOS, and he has, there's code that reads the sensors, the accelerometer and the gyroscope, that then gets translated into basically into numbers so that the OS can do things with it. Basically you have X, Y, and Z movement. You also have an acceleration, deceleration, and you have what would be considered like an impact, which is a quick accel and a stop. Those are all his code. So Frederick created all of it. What I did for the force pushes, there was some code for a different gesture that was on a different axis. So it was on the X axis. I moved it to the Y and Z axis to get that force, or vice versa. I get the axis confused, but I took code from one axis and flipped it so I would see the other axis. So it was really existing code. I just flipped it so it would do, because the normal movement was going to be a linear movement up and down. And I said, well, what if we, instead of going up and down with it, we went forward and back? So I just flipped it. It took some tweaking, because the orientation of the board is easy to do in certain planes, but in other planes you're actually dealing with a few, and Frederick would explain this better, but if you're moving linearly this way, you really is only one motion, because you're always going to move towards the blade or away from the blade. But you could technically move in a 360-degree circle around the blade. That's where it got a little tricky. So is what I do, I mean, again, I take what Frederick has, I ask him a lot of questions, and he gives me answers, and he usually drops some breadcrumbs for me. And then I just go and I put stuff in and I test it. And I'm like, all right, that's close. And then I do something else. I'm like, whoa, that's way off. And then I do something else. I'm like, oh, that's closer. So it's a lot of trial and error with. So what ends up happening is the gestures themselves are really just like information for the gyroscope for a set period of time over a set distance. And then in certain instances, it also has an acceleration part to it. So you have to, that's why some of these gestures you have to actually practice to get that, you have to get the speed right, but you also have to get the movement right. Because what it's doing is it's looking, the actual software is looking for this type of acceleration in this direction, but not this direction at over this period of time, and then it returns to the OS that, hey, that gesture just occurred. So it's looking at all the info from all the sensors, and you're just telling it, hey, if you see this happen, this happen, this happen, I want you to do this. That's ultimately what it is. But you have to figure out what those, some of them, like the swing and the stab and the twist, Frederick wrote those a long time ago. They've been around forever. The thrust was a modification, and the push was a modification to other ones to get it in place. And then the gestures have actually been sitting in the OS for a long time. They've just slowly started being used for things other than just sitting there. So,
you said the word spin, which triggered something. Spin you must. I don't know if you've seen that video. But what if, Fernando, you did a single 360 and that would activate blasters, and then you change it to your movements left and right, wouldn't possibly then it'd be a blaster deflect mode.
I mean, the fact is that the answer is probably there. It's just a matter of finding it. So getting back to your original question, the no button, actually, a few people have asked.
Yeah.
The spin might be the solution. The tough part is because turning the Saber off takes away twist, and twist is really the only unique action that's there now. Right. Spin might be.
Just a single spin.
Just a single spin and a stop might be. Spin isn't defined totally yet. It's doing its sound thing, but that might be something. But that would probably be something, maybe a future thing. I'm trying to think in what's in there now. I
was just curious because you were so close to having a totally buttonless Saber, and so I'm like, I gotta ask Fernando how close we are.
Yeah,
it's driving me nuts.
And a few of our viewers, I think Max actually, who's I see in the chat now, had asked me 2 or 3 weeks ago, and every once in a while it bounces in my head. The blast one is the one that is it feels like it's right there, but it's just out of reach. But there's got to be something. Yeah, and that's it. I'm by no means the only person doing this stuff. There's other guys doing stuff. Somebody out there might just see this even and be like, oh, why don't you just do this? And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, there you go. So, but I think it's close.
They got to share it with you because you're the pipeline, man.
Oh well, no, I'm not the only one because there are other guys contributing. So there's there is definitely a possibility out there. But I'll keep thinking on it, and I'll reach back to you. And if anybody in the chat comes up with any ideas, shoot them off our way.
Yeah.
It would in my head, I would think there's probably going to have to be like a combination of a gesture in a specific direction. Like that's what's happening now. And Frederick actually predicted this like back in OS3, is that new features being added so fast that we're running out of controls.
I'll bet.
Megtooth, your webcam's out. So Megtooth was going to join us tonight, but he was having webcam issues. So I will have you on another time then once you get that camera fixed, Megtooth. But thanks for joining in.
What's up, Tom?
So, yeah, he had told me he was having webcam trouble yesterday too. But yeah, so the idea of buttonless is not outside the realm of possibility. It's we'd probably look at something where you'd probably have to have some gesture where the blade is pointing in a specific either very up or very down, do something and then activate and then deactivate. It's like there, but it's not materialized yet.
Yeah.
But there's no reason it couldn't. It's just somebody has to think up how do you make that happen.
Battle mode seems like something like when you were talking about your son, how it gets him a little interested in, maybe it was before the show started, it gets him interested in lightsabers a little bit, having the battle mode and the different effects. It almost seems like, having battle mode and you have to get a bit good at it. Like you were saying, some of the gestures take a bit of practice. That leads me to a couple ideas. Like it's interactive. It's like more interactive for the wielder. And it makes you actually have to get good with the lightsaber.
Yeah.
Rather than sitting there and just like, oh, I'm just swinging it around. But if you want to get into it, you can. Maybe it's a little bit of a game. And that brings me to kind of the next idea, which is imagine you partnered up with someone like Mike Starwalker from YouTube or from Instagram. He does a lot of these fight
I've seen his stuff. Yep.
Choreography. And he could teach. Now, he's already doing it on YouTube. He's teaching some of the moves in a YouTube video. Imagine if there was like the Fett263 Mike Starwalker tutorial that was a program on the Proffi that you have to do the moves. You know, it's first a force push, then it's a swing left, then it's a circular, whatever the move is. And you have to kind of get it right through the actual gestures would tell you that, oh, this move is done perfectly now, or you're a Jedi Knight at this move, or you're a Jedi Master at this move.
You go up levels. You got levels in this audio. Wow.
It's all there. You'd have it would probably end up being like a custom script you'd have to call on, because then you'd have to kind of separate it from everything. But again, it's not outside the realm of possibility. It's pretty interesting.
Seems like the Saber could contain a lot, that like nowadays the Saber could really be packed with games, battle mode, tutorials, movie reenactments. It's got the music already.
That's it. The sound files would make the bulk of it. You'd want sounds that play after certain things occur just to be registering, because the graphics are on the blade, so you'd really just need sounds that trigger at points of completion. I hate to say it, but I used to have that Jedi trainer Yoda with the little light sensor in his chest, where you had that toy blade and you had to do certain things, and
that was cool.
Something like that would be.
I got a new idea for a Fett style. I don't know if I'm just like getting ahead of things here, but what about a Fett style? Now, you know how like someone like Juan Sith has fonts that's like Empire Strikes Back font, and it's got like Darth Vader in it and stuff like that, his voice. I wonder if one style, now, in your styles, you could pick like Jedi Green or Cyan, and you can kind of pick what you want. What if there was Empire Strikes Back style, and you could pick Luke, or maybe it's just a movie. Now, through the NeoPixel setup, it's so smart, and it could do so many things, obviously, with the RGB. And maybe it's counting. Now, I don't know if time is a quotient in here. I'm thinking it is because of the gestures. So it's like it's counting. So 10 minutes into Return of the Jedi, let's say, this saber is, Luke ignites his green saber. So your saber's being programmed at that moment to be green, to have the Luke sound, and now you could do your gesture and you could watch the movie and kind of reignite.
Time it out to the film.
Yeah. Just for the RGB settings and stuff like that. So it's like, you want to be Vader or you want to be Luke in this scene. Maybe there'd be two different Fett styles for that. Fett263 styles. You could be Vader from Empire Strikes Back or Luke, and then it would kind of, you'd activate your saber at that moment. And
there'd be a lot of timings on that. That'd be a big one, but you never know. Somebody, time it out. Yeah.
You're like, if you won't turn, maybe she will.
Right. It almost goes stereo at that point, because it's like you have your sound system in your house playing the movie, and then your saber kind of knows when to kind of maybe say the quote or something.
Yeah, you'd need to time. It would have to all be timed perfectly, and you'd have to probably start the blade at a very specific point.
I think if you started doing that, you're going to have to start charging for those. There's going to have to be certain tiers, like here's the free ones, and then here's the ones that like I worked all year on. And
that one, those type of things. That would probably be a team of people would need to be involved. That wouldn't be something one person would be able to knock out.
Or even take Space's idea and say one person with one saber can be Vader and the other person can be Luke. And depending on when they hit one another, then it takes you to the next segment of the movie. So you're truly interacting with another,
You mean like you and your son could like watch the movie together with two different sabers? Is that what you're saying? Well,
I'm saying how you're talking about programming and reenacting the actual movie. Well, then move it to two people so that like when you clash sabers, then Vader says something on the Vader saber, and then you clash again, and then Luke says something on the Luke saber. or a gesture movement that you complete, and then you get rewarded with, the Luke phrase or the Vader phrase, and it takes you through the movie.
Oh, I mean, it's
unlimited.
Oh yeah.
See, you've popped our noodle officially, Fernando. So we're like going nuts.
Well, that's it. Ideas are great. I can't promise I could do all of them, but ideas are definitely great. So.
Well, I think all the features that are packed into this battle mode, it is so much that I was telling Fett before the show started that I think everybody needs to be playing with battle mode and just exploring all the features of battle mode. I mean, there's so much contained in here that you could play with this through the rest of the year and beyond.
Yeah,
there is a lot here, and check out Fett's videos on this because it explains all the different effects that it could do. It's quite nutty. Just a little bit I've been playing with it. It's like it feels a lot more real for sure.
Yeah,
that's what
I was just gonna say. I spent the last 2 days reformatting my Leia saber, 2 days straight, and I feel like I've only scratched the surface going through all the blade styles and then the new battle mode, and it's unreal. I never envisioned it would be to this level. So thanks.
Thanks. That's what I love to hear. Yeah, Megtooth actually said he said hours, and he's been killing his batteries. He told me when he was testing it out, he was telling me he's like, my battery's dead. I'll do more testing tomorrow. So I love hearing that.
Well, that actually brings to mind two things. First of all, you have that setting where you could lower the strength of the LED blade to save your battery. Now, see, on the surface, I kind of don't like that because I feel like I would get. I would set it into something like 50% and I would forget, and then I'd come back to it later and I'd be like, wait, this is and I would forget that it's at 50%. But the interesting thing about what Megtooth is saying there is that it revitalizes. So like, let's say you got a saber full of fonts and you got 13, 14 fonts in your lightsaber and you've been playing with that since March. Put in battle mode, upgrade to 5 point, whatever it is, get battle mode. It revitalizes all the fonts that you were playing with, and now all of a sudden, right, JAD, you've been playing with the same fonts, right? But it's just like now it's all new. And you're kind of having a great time with all the same fonts I've been playing with since past couple months. But it's fine because now it's battle mode, and you got all these things unlocked in a way.
Well, that's it. Yeah, basically what I do is I'm playing with this saber between me and then, like I was telling you guys before the show started, my son is kind of in my head. I'm thinking about him when I'm trying to think of stuff like what would make a 13-year-old who he likes Star Wars because his dad likes it, but he's still a 13-year-old. What would make him say, "Hey, that's pretty cool, Dad"? So that's where I end up going down. But I was telling the story earlier. I don't know if you were on yet, Jedi Arms Dealer, but the battle mode itself, it kind of came from something else I was working on. But what I was working on was when I do some duels with my son, and I was telling, I know I told the story earlier, but I don't think we were live. And I practice with my son because we want to do a battle, and we go through everything. We're like, all right, we're going to do 2 high, 2 low, and then we're going to do the lockup. And then I go put on a costume, and I put on gloves. And I grab the saber, and we have everything memorized, and we start doing it, and I can't find the button because of the gloves, and it drives me nuts. So then I was like, why do I need a button to do a lockup? It's like, I've got everything here. So that's kind of where it led into, is that I didn't want to, you go through practice. I mean, especially we would try to record stuff, like I did some Vader and some Kylo things with my son, and we would record this little 2-minute video that we practiced for an hour for, but it took 50 takes for both of us to hit the aux button at the same time to get the lockup to work. So now that's all gone. So it kind of just came from actually just playing with the saber and be like, wait a minute, how about if we did this instead? And that's kind of where a lot of this stuff comes into. It's like just thinking about what would be cool or what should I be able to do with it, and then just kind of going after it.
That's awesome, because when I started messing with battle mode, I was thinking, man, I cannot wait to show this to somebody else, but I want to do it with the saber because I have a Lumos, my crystal-looking saber that has no buttons on the outside. Oh. And so I was like, I want to show somebody this and let them hold the saber. Look, there's no buttons anywhere. Give it back to me. I'm like, blam, blam, the whole 9, right? And then hand it back to him and say, okay, your turn. and they're going to be like, how, really? Like they'd be like, you're using the Force. What the hell's going on here? So
yeah, I mean, I'll think about that blaster for you. The other stuff is there. There is no button setup on it, but the controls are there. So if you told it you had 2 buttons, but you never pressed them, you can still get away with most of the stuff.
There's buttons on the chassis on the inside, but there's nothing that like transposes to the outside. Reach, yeah.
Gotcha.
So I'm gonna program that one next, and I don't know why, because like you said, if you just flick it on the first time, that activates it, right? Or do you have to hit a button the first time?
No. So again, the defines, there's a lot of them, but if you just use the regular swing on or the thrust on, you go right into battle mode. And that was, so when I was first doing it, I was like, all right, I enjoy the swing on, and my son does too. I think that's a really cool gesture. And for Kylo Ren, I like the thrust on, because in the very early trailer, when he's in the woods, he like thrusts down the saber, the main blade goes, and then those side blades kick, and everybody goes crazy. So those gestures I really wanted. But I was like, if you were in a real scenario, not like Star Wars real, but if you're in a scenario where you're like need to ignite the blade quickly, you're getting ready for battle. You're not just doing it to just light up the room. So if you're swinging on, you're ready to go. So it activates battle mode automatically. So that's there. And you have the twist off, and you'd have lock up, clash, melt, drag. It's the blaster, and then like the sound and the preset stuff is where the buttons are. So you wouldn't be able to change presets easily without the buttons. And blaster, because the saber's ignited, you have multi-blast mode. It's just getting in and out of that mode. Really getting in. Getting out's easier than getting in. That's where there's like one piece missing. So if we can figure that out, I think we can get to it.
Scott Giard says RFID on. That's one idea. For Jedi Arm Stealer, like, the idea that I have in regards to that RFID is Jedi Arm Stealer, you create one of your aux button to work with RFID chip and put the other chip in a glove tip. So you don't have to like have a ring or, whatever. But when you do need it, you have the gloves to your costume, and then you have access with like the middle finger of the glove or something to that aux button. That's one possibility.
Right. I see what you're saying. Something universal.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like if we looked at stuff, the multi-blast, getting into it with a gesture it's not outside the possibility, but we'd have to just figure something out.
But I see what you're saying, where it gets challenging when you start thinking about changing fonts or like advancing to the next font. I didn't think about that. But hey, if I just get to freak out one person with a button of saber with one font, I'm good.
Yeah, and I mean there's also, I mean, there's still potential that hasn't been tapped yet. So it might just be something that's just like somebody else thinking something up, or Frederick even getting in there and coming up with something new.
I also think, what if you kind of turned the hilt over, like nobody uses their saber like that if the board knows which end the blade is in, right? And you turn it over, and maybe you're doing like this to change fonts or something, and then you turn the hilt over and you do your power on gesture or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it's got that's the thing, is it can see a lot of things all at once. It's just getting them programmed and unique enough, because that was some of the gestures when I was playing with them. They're close to each other, so like it couldn't quite tell. Like even technically, the thrust on and the stab on that are in there, the motions are very similar. The only difference is the ending of the movement. But the thrust on, if you did the thrust for long enough before you had a stab, the stab doesn't get recognized because the thrust already happened. So some of these movements are very close to each other, so it gets to the point where you can't isolate them individually to do something separate, because it's seeing it already. Like that's what it is. Like the thrust is the same movement as the stab. It's just the stab hits something, the thrust doesn't. But if you just continue a thrust for a longer period of time and then stabbed, it's too late. Like the stab gets recognized too late. The thrust already happened. So
with this motion, like if you put your palm up and you butted the pommel against your palm,
that would be a stab.
Yeah, okay.
That registers as a stab. So stab is a very fast acceleration linearly along the blade.
Either direction.
In either direction, it's actually, the acceleration has to be so fast, which is basically when you're impacting your saber or your hilt or the blade itself, you're actually moving the gyroscope and accelerometer so fast. That's how it recognizes that impact happened. It's not like it feels like it's being hit. It's based on the speed of the movement and how subtle, how quick it is, and all that. So that's where some of these movements kind of blend in with each other. But it's
gotcha.
but
you said, the gestures are running low.
Yeah, well, just until somebody else thinks of a new one.
Yeah, combos, like you said, combos might be the way to unlock more things.
You'd have to, I mean, it's because of the way stuff works. If you could, I mean, it's going to take some thought. That's the thing. Is somebody just has to sit down and think about it. And I mean, it might even, I might come up with something, or somebody else might. I would say it's definitely closer than it was a couple months ago. So it's everything's moving so quickly.
Yeah.
But
thanks for just cracking this wide open for us, though, because I dreamed of it, but I was like, how's that ever going to happen? And here you are.
Yeah, no, and some other people, I mean, that's the thing is this is all like, some other people had said at different points in time, like, hey, why do we need a button for lockup, or why do we do this? And even when I was like first starting, I was thinking about it like, how do you know when how are you going to know when to end the lockup? And that's essentially, battle mode just hinged on figuring out how to end the lockup. That was really it. And what it was something that I still have in the back of my head that I haven't worked on yet, that I was trying to figure out. And I did it, and no joke, I was just testing this other idea, and I was like, I need a way to know that I need a way to tell the saber to stop doing something. Like, it's doing an effect I want, and I want it to stop, but I don't want the button. And that movement, that pull away movement, I put it in, and it worked perfectly. Like, I mean, it took some fine tuning, but within the first try, I was like, wait a minute, this works. And it kind of went from there. And then it was a lot of fine tuning to get it, because what ends up happening, particularly, like, I had it perfect by myself in a room, just hitting the saber. And then I put it on 2 sabers, and I gave it to my son and me, and we went to do it, and it was a mess, because what ends up happening when you physically hit 2 blades together, there's a reverse action, like impact, pull away. And that bounce was ending it before you could get lockup established. No matter how hard we tried to hold them still, it always happened. And that's where the second piece came in that I had to put in, which is you have to let the sabers hit. You got to ignore everything for X amount of time and then see what happens. So that's where there is actually a parameter, because some hilts that I have, they're really bouncy. Like, just probably the location of the board and how long the blade is, they have a lot more bounce versus other ones where you can pretty much stop it right away. So there's a parameter in the defines that if you're finding that you're hitting and you can't get that lockup because it's bouncing too much, that you extend that parameter. It's a lockup timer, and it just gives you longer to settle that blade in. And that was the last piece. Once I figured out how to delay that recognition of the pull away, it worked perfect.
Is that the I'm going to open my config right now. Is that the parameter that's, because I copied and pasted something off of.
Yeah, it's automatically there. It's if you need to change it. It's Fett263 lockup delay, and then it's a number. That number is actually milliseconds, and I found that 200 worked the best across all of my sabers. But like I said, if you have a saber, or some people just have, like, if you have a thick wall blade and you're wailing on something, you're going to get more bounce. You would increase that number, and I would say increase it like maybe 100, like go from 200 to 300, or if you go too far, it's going to be very hard to get the clash to recognize. So there's a Goldilocks spot where you have to give it time. You have to give it time to recognize if there's a lockup, but if you give it too much time, you almost can't do a clash. So it's kind of that.
Is that the motion timeout?
No, it's
define motion timeout. Is that?
No, it's going to be Fett263 lockup delay, and then 200 or 300. Yeah, it's going to be in the
mine yet.
Yeah, if yours is working, you don't need it. It's there if you're finding that a Saber is too hard to get the lockup to initiate.
Okay, now mine's doing good.
Yeah, the 200 worked across pretty much all the Sabers I tested it on, but because I realized that some Sabers, even in my testing, had different reaction, I put that in there so if somebody does have to adjust, they can. I've spent weeks testing all this stuff, so
I'm sure.
I've got it, and even after beta started, I made changes. That's why, like, some people who were using like beta 5.2 and 5.3, the current version is 5.4. That's probably the best one you can get. On GitHub is what will be 5.5. I actually had a couple error messages just for compiling that I forgot to take out, but 5.5 will fix those. But 5.4 is, if you're not using 5.4, move to 5.4 because that has everything like really tuned in and dialed in and working really well. Plus all the input from the beta testers. Like 5.2 was the first version of Battle Mode, and it worked well, but there was some pieces that needed cleanup and some speeds that had to be adjusted. So 5.4, which is the one you guys have, is the one to use. There will be a 5.5. It'll either be the beta 5.5 or it'll be the release. That's depending on what Frederick finds in it. But I already submitted code that will be what would be the next version. So there is another version sitting out there, but Frederick has to obviously run through everything and still clean up some stuff. But that one's out there, and that's just more because I had put so many defines in the config in the prop file. I put error messages in to try to help users not put two things together that wouldn't work. But then I changed them and I forgot to take the error messages out. So some people were getting error messages on stuff that's supposed to work together. So that's really what the next fix will be.
That's a lot of stuff to remember to do. But I'm just curious, what is the motion timeout, by the way, while I'm looking at this?
That is, so if you turn your Saber off, there's inherently to save some power, the motion chip turns off.
I just experienced that, actually. I was like, why isn't my battle mode working? But it's because I sat here talking to you guys and didn't do anything. So you have to turn the Saber back on, turn it off and then it's back into battle mode. Like right now, it's off of battle mode because I let it sit for 4 minutes or 3 minutes, whatever it was.
Mine's off now.
It'll go off. The default is 15 minutes, but you can change it. But if you define motion timeout yourself, it's whatever you put in there. My file will hold it for 15 minutes, and it's just that the OS wants to turn the motion chip off because that's pulling power all the time. So if the blade's off, it says, all right, the blade's been off for 15 minutes. Let me stop asking for this info. That's really all it is. And if you hit your power button and reactivate, it just all starts back up. But yeah, that does come into play if you have the Saber sitting for a while. You can change that motion timeout define to be, if you changed it to like an hour or something. The only thing would be is if you left your Saber off but the power's still running for an hour, you drain the battery a little. I mean, it's not going to kill your battery. It's going to drain faster than if that wasn't there.
Right.
And you said the max is 15 minutes?
No,
the default is 15. You could set it for whatever you want.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah, that's why I mean the list of defines in that file is so long now because I wanted to give so many options, but that's one of them, and it's described in there as well. That one is that's actually in the that was in a previous version but that's what it is. The motion timeout is just telling your motion chip not to turn off for this amount of time. So it's if you need to extend it, you would extend that one. I should probably put that somewhere easier for people to access too. There's so much information that sometimes I forget to say, hey, not everybody's going to know this, so it's good to get input from people.
What was I going to ask? Let's see. If Space and I both watched that 16-minute video, is there any other stuff since then that we should talk about?
No, that would be the full one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was cool.
Thanks. Yeah. So, and I know we were talking earlier. I know you guys have had fun with battle mode. Let's see. Let me just check my chat too. I'm terrible at keeping up with chat.
Chet Osborne is here. He's saying hello to everybody.
Hey, Chet. Yeah, I gotta.
I think there was one question for you.
Yeah, I'm looking back through
by
it.
Max. He says, would you be able to do an advanced tutorial on how to make your own prop file?
Where was that? Let me find it.
Maybe like 9 or 10 messages back from the newest.
You probably have to know a programmer unless you already know how to program, right? To make your own prop file.
What's a prop file?
So that's the button file there is actually a wiki page on it, Max. And I got this question. I feel like I got this question a couple of weeks ago. The prop files, like the concept is pretty straightforward. Bringing it all together and having it function is a whole other story. Like my prop file is weeks upon weeks upon weeks of trial and error. So it's not something I could sit and tell you what the parts of it are, but you'd have to go because I feel like I don't know if I said it earlier today, but I said it at some point that sometimes you change a control for something and it works perfect for that thing. And then you go to do something else and you can't do it anymore because those buttons were doing multiple things and you took it and put it somewhere that by doing that now you just chopped off. It's almost like you chopped off a limb to get one thing and then you go to use that limb. So there's a lot more to it than like just building a style. So a tutorial would be tricky. Eventually I could probably explain the parts of it, but the wiki page already does a decent job at it. But it really is trial and error once you understand the pieces of it. But for Space, your question, the prop file is just what tells what buttons and gestures to do what. So in Proffiobot right now, there's the default one that comes with it. There's my version, which is the Fett263. There's SA22C, and then there's Dimitri stock. What they did was they essentially created their own button configuration. So I think I haven't used the other two, but I think like Dimitri's follows more in line with like the Plector button controls. So he like flipped controls to be more like the Plector stuff, and I could be mistaken. And then SA22C, he actually was one of the first ones to do a different prop file that I encountered, and he set it up to be able to do like a volume menu, which I have on mine that I borrowed from him, and a few other unique controls. So that's the thing with Proffi is you can. As long as you can think out how you want the Saber to react, you can change all the controls yourself, and that prop file is what enables that. So you could say, hey, I want my aux button to turn my Saber on and off, and I want my power button to do blasts, and I want to have, instead of doing swing on be a gesture, I want the swing to change my preset. Like you can flip the controls however you want in that prop file, but you also have to consider you're taking away the controls. If you take away the controls from one thing and give it to something else, you got to find a home for what you just took the controls away for. So,
yeah, Jedi Arms Dealer's trying to take away buttons, not add them.
Yeah. So you never know. Oh, okay. Meg Tooth corrected me. SA22C is more like Plector. That was it. I really want to.
So Fernando, I noticed now. We're going into the config now and adding defines, whereas before didn't we used to have to copy paste the name of the prop file in the prop folder to get it to see like Dimitri's, or am I?
Yeah. So that was a change. New? It's OS 3.9. Frederick added it. So it used to be you had to go into the INO file and change that prop. And he realized people were doing that, so he just made it so you do an include in your his concept is you should be able to do everything just from the config
in
file.
The config. Yeah, that's beautiful.
You leave the OS alone. You don't have to touch anything else. You go in, and that's where my defines came in. Was following that concept was that if you have if you wanted I have where you could do the gesture swing on, you could do stab on, twist on, thrust on. If you want those, you just put them in the config and the prop file turns them on for you. Or if you don't want them, you just don't include them. Because some people don't want to, if they move their Saber to have it ignite. So you don't include that. So the defines in the config are just to make it so you're really customizing that prop file already, just using your config file to do it.
Yeah, because I noticed when I didn't have a blade in and I re-uploaded with your battle mode and everything, I barely touched the saber and it ignited it. Even though there was no blade in it, I was like, wow, that's crazy sensitive. But then when I put a blade in it, it worked the way it was supposed to.
So because your center of balance got changed. So yeah,
right.
the movements get exaggerated. Yeah.
I think that happened to me too, right before the show. Because I went in to put like a shorter blade, and when it didn't have a blade sitting on the counter, and then I went to touch it and it went on. I think the same thing happened to me. And then like when I put the blade in, everything was fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, the swing and the thrust, because of the movement, if you do that movement, even if you don't mean to, it's going to see it and it's going to do it. And but yeah, what'll happen is, I mean, most of the time when you balance your saber, it's with the blade in. With that blade out, all of a sudden it could become unbalanced.
But it's pretty cool that you can toggle those things on and off just inside the config. So I wonder if in the future, if Dimitri's going to be able to incorporate any type of config interaction with the Force Sync app, and you'll be able to toggle these things on and off with your phone.
I mean, technically, I don't know his app that well, but yeah, if you could pass that info in.
Yeah, I'll shoot that to Dimitri and see
actually
if it's a possibility.
Mech-Tooth chimed in. We might be close to your 0 button there.
Uh-oh.
I haven't looked at that. So Tom, we'll have to
I do remember something about this.
That might be the piece.
Battle mode. Okay,
because if you put battle mode into that default, I mean you'd have to merge them, but it's
Frederick already thought of it. See that?
Yep. He's
3 steps ahead.
Worlds ahead. Oh yeah, he's multiple steps ahead. I'm Falcon in the film, and he's Captain America on your left, on your left, on your left, on your left. So it's all the time. I ask him, I'm like, hey, it'd be cool if we could do this. He's like, well, look at this. I'm like, oh shit, it's there already.
I'm a snail.
Yeah. It's all just awesome. What you get exposed to. So yeah, this stuff to me is fun too. So I've done a deep dive just because I kind of enjoy it. You don't have to though.
It must be exciting to you finish this and then put it out, and it's like, waiting for people to enjoy it, and they're gonna. I mean, a lot of people are gonna have fun over the holidays with this.
That's it. When I see somebody post something, anywhere that, hey, this is the style from my library, or this is, hey, I just did battle mode. Like to me, that's just like, hey, yeah, that's what the community is about, is that I like Star Wars and I'm enjoying sabers, and you connect with somebody who also likes Star Wars and also likes sabers. So it's that kind of connection. Like it just brings everybody together.
Totally. Like I never care when I ever hear like a Star Wars fan like say something that I don't agree with, or say something like politically they don't agree with or something, because I just always default to like, I'm like, wait, they're a Star Wars fan, so everything's fine. Yeah. Like they're all good. They always get a pass. Like if they like Star Wars, I don't care, like whatever you say, you're gonna get a pass with me.
Oh yeah.
You're cool.
That's good. Any other questions or anything else you guys curious about, or anybody in the chat?
You got your Proffi OS folder in front of you, Space. I just wanted to point you to that props file so you could see where they are.
Yeah.
Did you find it? The props folder? Oh, okay. So if you go into Proffi OS folder, it's got your .eno file. There's a folder in there just below Proffi OS.eno called props. Double click that.
Oh, okay.
And there's Dimitri's in there.
Is it called props because like one of them's detonator, one of them's blaster? Like it just depends on what prop you're going to use it in.
Right.
Yeah. So
like for a blaster, it'd be like trigger and.
Yeah. So if you put that, you could put a Proffieboard in like those thermal detonators, because Frederick actually did it. That's why he made that. You, instead of using one of the Saber prop files, you would use the detonator, or if you put it in a blaster, I think Mech-Tooth did a blaster. It changes the controls, but also changes what it does, because a blaster has like blast and stun. It has the clip in, the clip out. It has all these other things. So you have to have different effects, you have to have different sounds, and you obviously have different inputs because it's a different prop. So there's the detonator one, there's the blaster, and then most of them are Saber, but you could put that Proffieboard into those other props.
All right, so all of you programmers out there, let's make a prop folder or a prop file for jacket. We're going to make a lighted jacket. Let's make, and with a 0 button configuration where I'm going to wave my arms in a weird manner, and it's going to activate the lights on the sleeves and stuff, and you guys are all going to freak out.
So I don't know if you've seen it. I have my Kylo Ren Rise of Skywalker helmet is a Proffieboard helmet.
Oh wow, that's awesome!
I have seen.
Wait,
that.
so
well
does
done,
does the red lines in it that are like supposed to be are they lit up or something?
Yeah, hang on, let me grab. Yeah, let me grab it. Hang on, it's right behind me. 1 second.
Yeah, it's sick.
Oh, Megatooth just gave you a birthday present. JD.
Yeah.
He gave you a birthday present in chat.
How does that work?
So, let me get my headset back on. I can't hear you guys. 1 second.
Oh my god, that's amazing.
So yeah, so it's got.
Wow, that's sick, dude. That's better than the movie.
It's all NeoPixel, but I actually have programmed in here different effects. So let's do this one here.
Like it's on fire or something, or glowy. So, wow. Oh, it's molten.
So this one, yeah, it might be hard on the camera, but this one has some movement. There's a movement
pixel
of it.
Strips?
That's
strips in
it's
there?
all NeoPixel in there. Let's see. Go to a different one.
That is incredible.
I didn't know the red had animations. Damn,
yeah, there's different animations in it. It's hard to see on the film, but in person, there's a bright spot that's tracing each line individually that's programmed in there, but it just kind of washed out. But I actually I put NeoPixel in here, and I put a Proffieboard, and I've actually styled different versions to do it. Now, the only limitation is because the resin of this helmet is red, I can't change the colors because no matter what color you put in, it always presents red. But it can do all the different animations and stuff. So I actually, before the film came out, I started working on this. And I didn't know, because all the screen caps, they didn't show if there was any movement. They only showed where they were welding it. So I actually have one of these where I designed it where it looks like it's being welded. So it has a motion like it's being welded each line. But this is a Proffieboard helmet.
You must freak out some of the members of 501st with that thing, huh?
Wow.
A lot of them have asked me about it. That thing took forever to get those NeoPixels in there.
Bet.
So because each line has a different branch. So it took a while.
You need to get you one of those little monkey puppets and and then set your helmet down and make him welding it, when you're chilling out at conventions. When
Fett, if you ever have to make another one of those, they have these newer NeoPixel strips that are even skinnier and smaller than the skinny strips.
Oh, really?
So that might work for if you have a project like that, again, to get in even tighter spaces.
Yeah, it fit really nice. The biggest thing is because of the lines in it being, there's some of these that are literally 2 pixels, and it goes at a weird angle. So I had to cut all the lengths individually and then solder them in a specific branching pattern. So that's what took forever. And I think there's
great work.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, I think I ended up using about 3 meters worth of NeoPixels in the whole thing. So it was a lot.
Wow.
Yeah, how do you got to power that thing too?
Yeah, well, so that's the other part of it that helmet is what started my power save stuff. It runs a single 18650, but because of how the light is diffused inside that helmet, I'm only running the power, the brightness of that red is like RGB, it's 20 instead of 255, so it's a tenth of the power is being used to run it. So that's where the concept comes in, because what ends up happening, if I run that at full red, it's so blinding you can't look at the helmet. So it's actually really, really dim. So it's using considerably less power.
That's very cool. The strips you're talking about, Space, are those the higher density ones too? They're really tiny?
They're actually not higher density, but they are tinier. They're on
a 3535.
Yeah, they're on Adafruit website. If you look under NeoPixels under their shop, it's something kind of new. and I considered doing like maybe trying to put like 3 or 4 of them in a blade, but there was something about the specs that turned me off. I can't remember what it was. I mean, I had a bunch of them in my cart. I was like, I'm going to do this. And then I looked closer at the specs and I'm like, you know what? I don't think this is going to work. I forget. Maybe it was a brightness issue or something. I was like, I don't think this is better.
I think Scott said 2020s.
Maybe that's what it is.
Okay. Yeah, it'd be cool for accents.
On the Adafruit website, yeah.
No, interesting.
Probably Scott's right there.
Accents in tight places. That's what I've been looking for. So.
Yeah. You would like that for that.
Yeah, I'm seeing more and more people. I forget the name. Somebody just put out something where they had like so many accents on their chassis. It was ridiculous. I mean, these guys are getting so creative with this stuff, and if you can get those smaller pixels, make them tighter.
That's the thing, with this battle mode and all the stuff that Fett does. Things could change in an instant when they come out when the next thing pops. So like if the next thing pops and it's like a skinny strip with like RGBWW or something, then like Fett has a little more something to play with because he has a couple more, options with the lighting and stuff. And then maybe Proffieboard has to upgrade itself to handle whatever they come out with next. But there is something around the corner with NeoPixel, probably. It just depends on if it's suitable for lightsabers or not, but it could be like something like you're already doing could get a boost when we turn the corner on the next thing as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, the technology is nowhere near done. It's probably in its infancy actually, so it's so much potential.
Well, battle mode's definitely one of the more exciting things that come out this year. So thanks for
I think it's the most exciting thing that come out in sabers in a long time, actually. Yeah. And I think it is the next big thing. And I think I only came into understanding of like what it was through watching the videos that Jedi Arms Dealer sent me that Fett created. So if you don't know what battle mode is and you take a look at those videos, download it yourself. It's free. You own a Proffieboard, you can get battle mode and play with it because you could actually, it's not just like a one and done, like, oh, I got a new font and then you put it down. It's like this revitalizes all the stuff that you already have too, I think. So
yeah,
you can kind of like really get into your fonts that you already have, your old fonts, and be like, wow, this is like a whole new experience with battle mode. Play with all your favorites again,
I feel sorry for the parents this Christmas because they're going to be like, I want a Fett263 Saber. And they'll be like, what the heck is that? How do I get one of those?
Yeah, I get people asking me. I'm like, I have to tell them I'm not the installer. I'm like, I'm just a big fan, and I try to contribute. But there's a world out there of guys who will install these, and obviously Frederick being the mastermind behind it all. But it's especially through the channel, I get more and more people asking, and I'm like, it's
a good end goal for people that want to get into the hobby, maybe make their own saber, because the Proffi's really affordable itself. So if you use this as your end goal, like you see battle mode, and you're like in the videos that are to come with people playing with battle mode, myself, Fett's going to make new videos of battle mode demonstrating stuff, and when you see it, that's a good end goal to have. Be like, maybe you don't have a lightsaber yet, and you're like, you know what? That's the lightsaber I'm going to get a lightsaber the way I want, and it's going to have battle mode on it. And it's a great thing to like kind of try to get to, because you can build your own saber and then get to the point where all you do is download battle mode and you have the best holiday you ever had in your life.
That's what got me in the hobby. I saw Meg Tooth's video of his Kylo Ren saber.
Yeah.
And I was like, I have to have that. And then I don't know if he remembers it, but I actually asked him originally if he would install one for me, and he was so busy at the time, he said he couldn't. And that's kind of what made me think, like, well, how hard could it be? Yeah. So it's like, had I just gotten one from him, I might not have learned all I learned. So he kind of got me into it. But then, in all honesty, though, after I got into it, I asked him a ton of questions, and he answered them all. But originally, it was the only reason I reached out to him was I saw his videos. I was like, I need to have that Kylo Ren saber. Can you build one for me? And he was too busy. So then I'm like, hey, I know how to solder. I kind of understand the idea of electronics. Let me try and build one myself. And that's how I got into the hobby. I just
unbelievable. So you went far past your end goal and went to the other side of the sea. And now your stuff is like other people's end goal. That's really
but that's it. That's the thing about it, is you never know. The person with the next great idea just hasn't been turned on to this area yet. I mean, that's pretty much if you think about any hobby, like there's so many people out there with so many unique ideas. Maybe they haven't seen what you're looking at yet. That's why, like, I try, when somebody asks me questions, I try to help them, because I was on the other side really not that long ago, where I didn't even know that there was a custom saber. Like, my exposure to sabers was master replicas. Like, that was it. I didn't know there was a whole world of custom sabers that existed, because I never got exposed to them till his video. So there's people out there who've never seen this stuff. They see it, they find out about it, they learn about it, and then over time they might be the next ones to take the technology another level. So
right.
That's funny you say that, because I saw a guy on Facebook today that's only collected master replicas his entire, and he's got like almost all of them, he says, and he saw one of your videos with Battle Mode, and he was like, that's it. I'm finally going to invest in a really nice saber, because I got to have Battle Mode. So,
Awesome. Yeah. No, that was it. I had no clue that there was anything else out there. Like, I never got exposed to it. I just never came across it. So
I think we're going to rewrite like the Jedi code about lightsabers. Instead of the crystal is the heart of the saber, it's going to be like the Proffi is the heart of the saber. And we can like rewrite the whole mantra for the real world.
Oh yeah. Yep.
I like that.
I mean, that's it. Yeah, that's the potential is so awesome. That's why I'm glad that Tom turned me on to Teensy Saber and to Proffieboard, and I bought on the first run because Tom told me I should. I didn't even know what it was really. He just said, "Hey, if you want to build a saber, this guy Professor Zorn is doing a run of the new Proffieboard, which is much easier than the Teensy Saber," because he had shown me the Teensy Saber, and I was looking at all the pins and I was like,
it was like two boards sandwiched together.
I was like, yeah, and I was like, man, I don't know. I was like, I really want to do this. I was like, but that looks like an undertaking, and it was literally right as the run was coming up. So my first install was my Graphics with the Proffieboard I got from that run, and that's where it kind of just snowballed from there. But it was I came in at the right time, because I think that I come in when there was only Teensy Saber, I probably might not have gotten into it as easily. So the Proffieboard, Tom kind of telling me, hey, get in on this run. It's really inexpensive, and because I think it ended up being 30 something bucks. And he's like, but it's going to do all the stuff you want, and I know you want to build one. So I got in on the first run. I got 5 boards, and the rest is kind of history.
That's funny.
Is one of those original boards in the helmet?
No, the helmet's newer. I have the original run boards in my Graphics, my MPP, and my first Kylo.
I still have a Teensy Saber in my drawer. I'm not going to go there yet. It doesn't look fun at all.
But from what I understand, it's like it'll work the same way. You could even put Battle Mode on it, from what I understand.
Totally.
That is it. Tom does that. Tom has one of his sabers still has the Teensy in it, and he keeps updating it with all the new features, and it keeps running.
So cool.
That's awesome.
That's so cool.
Like, if you have a hilt that you could afford the space, you might as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Somebody just posted. Yeah, there's been all these posts. The Proffieboard's popping up everywhere. There's I forget the manufacturer. Somebody has the manufacturing now, and it's popped up on the Walmart website. It's popped up on the Amazon. Yeah, it's
weird.
But it's so the community. I mean, even I'm in the open source group, and I'm on the Proffieboard group, and obviously the TRA forum. The number of people coming in for Proffieboard is just so many more, because as people hear about it, they want to learn more about it. So these, and even like all the people who are obviously on this chat right now, everybody's kind of, some of these people are brand new, some of them have been around for a while, but the community with Proffieboard is just growing. And as more people get exposed, that was it, Electronics 123.
Yeah, that's where I've been getting the stuff from. I think Jedi Arms Dealer told me about that one.
Yeah,
that's where I got the colored ones, like
eBay,
white or blue.
Yeah, they've so there's a number of options. Megtooth, I'm gonna get you next time, Megtooth, because I am actually gonna have to get off in very shortly, because I do have the kids to take care of. But I will get you on. I'm sorry you couldn't get on tonight. He was supposed to join us. He was at work. We'll get you on though next time, and I'm definitely gonna have you two gentlemen back in the near future as well, as long as you're available.
Absolutely.
Yeah, man.
But But yeah, I'm gonna. Yeah, actually, it's getting close to the time. Do you guys have any questions that I can answer for you, or anybody in the chat?
I think we've pretty much covered it. I'm sitting here. I'm sure I'll with this thing.
Yeah, the one cool thing about that, like, expanding Proffi community is that I think everybody that utilizes Proffi should, also utilize Fett263 styles and Battle Mode and a lot of different stuff. So I could see as that community gets bigger and bigger and bigger, then so too should, the people that utilize all the Fett263 stuff too, because it's like makes it easy to add all these features that, first of all, not, you thankfully did all the work to come up with it and produce it, and so the end user just has to simply like do XYZ, and it's like next thing you know, you're playing with it.
Yeah, I mean, and I've said this also. Like, I put my library together for everybody to enjoy. I also put it together because obviously you have a limited number of styles you can put on your Saber. I have a lot of stuff I love, but I can't always have it on all the Sabers. So the library is also where I keep my ideas, but it's just open to everybody. But I also love seeing what other people come up with. So I am definitely not the end of this, because there's a lot of creative people getting more and more experience that are coming up with even cooler stuff. So I'm by no means meant to be the only one, but I mean,
I could see collaborations in the future too. I mean, what if 2 years from now, somebody has some kind of programming that is like expands the world just like Battle Mode is doing right now, but in a different way. And then all of a sudden you have like a Battle Mode combined with, it's just like, you just never know what the possibilities are, just really endless out there.
That's the beauty of open source, is that, somebody like I said earlier, a lot of the pieces of Battle Mode are just from stuff that Frederick had already had and written. And I just, first of all, I asked him, but secondly, I took parts of it and used it in different ways. And there's other people already, there's a few other contributors on TRA who are working on some other things that are already planned for like the next release. And as more people get experience with it and come into the community, there's a lot of new ideas coming in. I do see Brian's question. Let me grab Brian here. So I actually looked down this path for you, Brian. It's going to be something for the future. It's not going to make it in OS5. But for OS6, I'm going to take a look at making it an option. It's totally feasible, totally possible, and it tested out okay. The problem was that it, at the same time, it could also become, and Frederick pointed out, it could also become kind of a hindrance. So more work needs to be done. But this is something, so Brian had asked a little while back if and this ties to what you were asking, Jedi Arms Deal, the multi-blast where you swing and blast going into it. Right now you hold the aux button for a few seconds, let it go. You get a blank blast, and then every swing is a blast until you deactivate it. Brian had asked if it's possible to just have you do a blast and then detect a swing within a certain set of time to trigger it. And the theory part of it is fine. The actual doing it in testing and just thinking long term wasn't perfect. So it needs a little bit more work, and it needs to probably be an option for the future. And that's what we were talking, for anybody who's joining late earlier, Jedi Arms Deals going after a 0-button Saber. We're trying to figure out how to get the blast mode, the multi-blast mode activated without a button. So I'm going to take that and think on it too, and see what is out there. And as Megtooth noted, there is 0-button capability on the default Saber.h file. So if we took that, put Battle Mode into that, and then found a way to handle the blasts getting turned on, I think you could get pretty damn close to full functionality 0-button, except for presets and tracks and stuff. That's going to be, you're going to have to slice off some stuff, but in terms of Saber function for usage, I think you could cover it. But yeah, trying to get into a good amount of stuff we could probably knock out. Certain things I think will probably just not make the cut, but the blast one seems like it's close. So, and Brian's question was close to that too.
Well, that's where Dimitri's app comes into play. For a $10 Feezy Bluetooth chip, you throw it in there. You have control over your music. You actually have control over font advance. But then the actual, gestures for all of this, the other sounds. You're
for right now, blast. Yeah, the blast is the one, because the multi-blast handles great. It's just getting into it. We need something to tell the Saber to turn that on. So that's where we're at. Yeah, let's see. So I'm gonna call us in about 5 minutes, gentlemen, because I already got the signal. It's let me grab one of these questions. So Max, I grabbed. I don't have them here. I just got 2 beginner books on C++, and that was only to learn the syntax. Everything else, once you have the syntax down, it's really just reading it. And in all honesty, Frederick has been great, because I've asked that man probably 10,000 questions, and he's answered every one of them. Now, don't everybody go emailing him 10,000 questions, because then he won't be able to work on other stuff. But I ask him, like, so going even further back, way back when, and this, I know it's going to be a tangent, but it's going to come back. I wanted to do the color change stuff, and I kept asking him questions about how to get it. And he was answering my questions, but it got to the point where he was answering questions that, and he said it, he just bluntly said it. He said, listen, if you're really trying to do this, these are questions that you need to know the answers to if you're going to get there. He said, if you're serious about it, you should probably start with a book. And and he said it to somebody else around the same time in a somewhere in the TRA or something, and that person took it as a negative, like, hey, leave me alone, go read a book. I took it as, hey, I don't know enough to do this yet, teach yourself. And I got the book, and I taught myself, and that was it. But the C++ is what it's programmed in. If you understand the C++ syntax, you can understand enough of what's going on. But the OS itself is a whole lot of stuff all going on, all working together. So you also have to decipher what's happening in terms of, you might understand this piece of code, but that piece of code is running like 50 other things. So you have to understand that relationship part. So it is a lot. You got to dive in. But C++ is where I got 2 beginner books on C++. I do have HTML experience. Like I'm that old that I hand coded websites for buddies in college on Notepad. So my experience is HTML, and I know CSS and JavaScript. So the syntax was a little easier to understand. But C++ is what essentially is being used. Let's see. Yeah, C++ for dummies. Yeah, I don't think I got the dummies one, but I got one of the beginner ones and something else. Let's see. Yeah, I think that's...
I know another thing I wanted to tell Space about. I saw today in your preferences on the power save mode is that, Space, you can, instead of selecting, once it goes into power save mode, it makes the blade dimmer. Instead of you selecting 10, 20, 30, 40, 50%, there's a gradual setting where it'll actually slowly bring the blade down as you're using it from 10 through 50. I'd never seen that before, Frederick. Fernando.
That's all right.
You guys both have names with F.
Yeah, don't worry, I get that a lot. Yeah, I'm definitely not Frederick. I can't take credit for what he's done.
But did he put that in there, or did you with the power saving stuff?
I put that. That's in my library.
That's genius.
So that one's a little different than the new one. There is a new dimming mode, which you pick. The power save one that's in the library now is actually in OS4. It works for OS5. That one looks at the battery level, and when your battery gets below a certain point, it slowly dims your blade to save power. That one you don't touch. Like, it does its own thing for you, and the idea is it's a passive system. The new one is the actual battery power save, where you actually click. So if you have your Saber pointing straight up, you have to have the style. So the style is in there. If you have the style in your preset, if you hold your Saber straight up and press aux and click power, it will dim however much you want. You could do it by 10% increments, you could do it 25% increments, or you could just do 50. That's in there. And again, because everything's, you pick it, that's one of the things that's coming. So like the OS5 library everybody's asking about, I started working on it. It's still going to take me some time. It'll be an option. You'll choose it. You'll say, hey, I want to be able to do power save this way, this way, this way. You'll add it to your style, and it's sitting there for you.
The one that's in your styles library, that's a pull down. And then
yes,
and so that's incremental. And so I'm just curious, how does that work? Is it just looks at the battery voltage and then adjusts your blade towards the end of the battery life?
Yeah, that one that's there is actually looking at the battery voltage in real time. And as the battery drops, it's going to dim your blade more. And that's essentially, so it's saying, hey, the battery's at 30% left. Let's dim it 15%. And then it says, okay, now it's at 25%. All right, let's dim it to 30%. So it's really just a function that's watching the battery level, and it adjusts.
That's very cool.
I just thought of the first Battle Mode meme. Okay, so it's a little kid crying, and he's like on the floor, like on his knees with his lightsaber, just crying over it. And it says, "Didn't know he was in power save mode." He was all upset that the blade was dim.
It'll be so the ones that'll be coming out. The ones that'll come out will only dim when you tell them to. And if you turn the power off on your board, or if you turn the power off on your board and turn it back on, it'll reset itself back. But yeah, if you do power save and you toggle through it and you turn it off, but you don't turn the board off and you come back to it, the blade's going to stay dim. You'll just press the button though, and it'll go back to brightness. So, but yeah, if you put your blade down and you forgot you did it, I can see how that'd be a bummer.
Yeah, like you hand it to your nephew. He's like, I thought you said this saber was bright.
Yeah. Well, what I was thinking of doing was dimming mine down to 75% dim, and then grabbing one of the just in-held LEDs and putting it next to you, be like, NeoPixel isn't that different, and then toggling it to 100% and blinding the other guy.
Blowing out the camera, yeah.
Yeah, so, but, well, gentlemen, I do have some father duties, but thank you so much for joining me tonight. I'm glad you guys enjoyed Battle Mode, and thanks everybody for the chat. If I missed any questions, I'll try to catch up with you all. I think I got most of the main ones. Everybody here has been great, but I'm glad everybody's joining Battle Mode. I'm glad you gentlemen were able to test it out and had fun with it and be able to join me tonight. And Megtooth, we will get you on in the future, I promise, and I'll have you guys back on. But thanks so much, everybody.
Thank you so much. It was awesome.
Yeah, thank you, Fernando. Epic stuff.
Thanks. Yep.
Yeah, buddy.
Get into Battle Mode.
Nice. You guys, it just washes out. It's just so bright.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Thanks so much.
Have a good night.
Thanks.
You guys have a great night.